What's up, everybody, and welcome to Twisted Bard's review show for the Sony E3 press conference for this E3 2017. I'm Paddy, and I'm here with Rob.
Hello.
And Alistair.
Hello.
Let's jump straight into it. So they opened with Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, which is the standalone DLC for Uncharted, the last bit of Uncharted we're ever going to get, or at least for a long time. Kind of new story, a new trailer, looks really cool. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it looks awesome. It looks like loads of fun, and loads of explosions and really good story. Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very over-the-top sort of live performance that they did at the beginning, but the game itself looks very Uncharted-y and stuck very close to kind of its original style. So even though it's a standalone game, I don't think it's gone too far from the original source.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a team working on it that I haven't really worked on much. A new team basically putting this together. So it should be interesting to see what they do. I think it's going to have quite big, I think they said the biggest environment ever for an Uncharted game, which is interesting because Uncharted 4 had some big ones. So, no, really looking forward to it. Something else that I'm suddenly looking forward to, which didn't expect to, was what they announced next, which was that Horizon Zero Dawn's getting its first bit of DLC called The Frozen Wilds, and it's coming this year. That seems really quick.
Yeah, that does feel really quick. It's only been out, 2 months?
It came out in April, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, 2 months, boom.
Yeah, it seems like a fast turnaround. It looks beautiful. It looks like it's somewhere else, very kind of mountainous and frozen. I guess that's in the name. Something to do with possibly a new creature up a mountain. So it should be interesting to see how that. That's cool. New robots. See how that ties in. Looking forward to it. Next, they showed something else that we know about, Days Gone. Which, yeah. Alistair?
Let's just say over the sort of past year or something, we've seen sort of quite a few different iterations of Days Gone. Well, they've gone from mass horde killing to sort of now a bit more seemed like in the gameplay that they showed, a bit more of a stealth, tactically type thing where you use the environment and sort of your weapons to draw the hordes to your enemies to take them out instead. So it seems like they've gone a slightly different direction to most zombie games, but it would be interesting to see what happens with it.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw it last year at E3, I remember thinking this looks really, really, really good from a technical point of view in terms of what they've built. But from a gameplay point of view, I was a bit like, oh god, a whole game of me running away from hordes just sounds awful. Just because my heart wouldn't be able to handle it. So I'm quite pleased there's things that are outside of that. We saw a bit of a combat. We saw things that are outside of, oh my god, there's a giant horde, fucking run. So yeah,
it feels like a real step, I think, in the right direction. I think when we saw it the first time, it almost fell flat for me. I think, like you said, technically it was really really impressive, really that all those having so many enemies on the screen at once and then all kind of running at you. But it is nice to see that there's more to it than that. This looks like it looks like there's been a year's more development. There's no release date yet, so I assume this is probably not until at least late next year. So hopefully they can really finish polishing it. My only concern, I guess, is the bits of that demo looked a lot like The Last of Us, and if this keeps dragging on in terms of when it comes out, I'm worried that they're going to be released, Last of Us Part 2 and Days Gone maybe a bit too close to each other. They're going to feel too similar.
I mean, the only thing that'll be similar though is in tone. That's is that a bad thing?
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I just think if you've got two big exclusives coming out very close to each other and they are really similar games, I think you're going to be eating into your own fan base a little bit. I mean, I don't know how much people are going to want to play this one off the back of the other one, but the Last of Us Part 2 might not be 2019, even 2020. So. Probably not something that need to worry about, but no, Days Gone looking a lot better and excited for it now. Yeah. Then they showed Monster Hunter, which is coming early next year. Not something I think I've ever seen on console before.
Oh, it's been on a Nintendo one, hasn't it?
Okay, but at least not in recent times.
Yeah, I mean, I know there was one, wasn't there, on the Wii U last year or the year before?
I mean, nobody knows if that's true.
A Monster Hunter, I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, there was one that was definitely out because I remember getting the demo for it and having a play.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, like the trailer looked pretty cool. The only thing is sort of from the gameplay, it's sort of a suffers from that sort of a gameplay that I don't quite like, which is I don't know, that slow paced, clunky. Although there were some parts of that looked really satisfying, it's just not my sort of game. But yeah, like it looked pretty cool, and I'm sure fans of the series will be pleased to see it branching out. So yeah, awesome.
Alistair, anything?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I haven't played any of the Monster Hunter games, so I wouldn't have too much to add to it. But I've seen a few things like on the previous games, and it did seem to stick with the same Monster Hunter style. Because I was able to pick up quite early on that this could be a new Monster Hunter game from.
You were the first person. You were the person to say.
It was.
I think it's Monster
Hunter that gave it away. Yeah, I agree with Rob. Like there was just something about it that did seem a little clunky. It was mainly with the sort of the combat and the movement aspects of it, but it looks nice, and that was just another computer starting off in the background. Ignore that. And yeah, it all seemed. I'm not too excited about it, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who will be.
Cool. And then I guess this is up there for biggest surprise of the show, maybe. Japan Studio coming out and announcing either what I think most likely a real full HD remake of Shadow of the Colossus. Yeah, just looked really impressive. We didn't see that much, but
that looked really cool. Yeah, like, I am so on board on that. It's one of those ones on the PS2 where I was PS2 and I had quite a lot of the PS2 hits, but that's just one of the ones that I sort of missed, and it's always one that I wish that I hadn't. And even though I still have my PS2, like I've never got round to it, but if it's brought out on the PS4 library, then yeah, like I will probably pick that up.
Yeah, and I think it's also being developed by Bluepoint, who are one of the teams who I think have done quite a few HD remakes of old Sony games. So this might not actually be kind of years and years away, which, cool. This might not be like a Last Guardian type situation where it takes them forever to get this out. Obviously, there was no release date, but there's a bit of pedigree in terms of what they're doing behind it. So hopefully, it looks really cool. Then we saw Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which is this year, coming September 19th, and a story demo is available now on, I guess, the PlayStation Store.
Yeah, which is weird that they seem to emphasize a lot of the story in the trailer that they showed for a fighting game, which, like, personally, I don't really care too much about the stories in those types of games, but it was weird that they focused on, like, there's a story demo, and like it's a story aspect, is like get involved with these characters.
I imagine they're probably trying to bank on the popularity of Marvel and stuff, really.
It is weird. It is weird not to see, like, actual. I don't think we really saw gameplay, did we? Like what an actual fight would look like. No, that's normally the standout bits of fighting games, isn't it? How good they look and the graphics and stuff. But yeah, again, not something for me necessarily. And then they showed, the first kind of real big one of their third-party partners, which is Activision. They showed Call of Duty World War II, which is this year, November 3rd. It was always going to show up at some point on the stage. Didn't really see very much, no gameplay, another kind of story trailer, very similar to what we've seen before. And it's a bit of a theme, I think, of this E3, of just seeing very produced trailers for things that we kind of already know about. So I guess it doesn't need to show us too much more.
Yeah, like I thought, like trailer-wise, it was still sort of quite a alright trailer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just did what it needed to do. It was, it's guns and here's the tone and here's the theme. But I suppose we're at the point now with Call of Duty where we don't really need that a gameplay trailer. Like we know what we're going to be getting for our sins.
Yeah, and Alistair, I think you saw some similarities with kind of Battlefield 1, especially in the melee stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bit in the trailer where there was a bayonet charge, which, like, almost if you put it side by side, is exactly the same as Battlefield 1. I don't know whether it was kind of an influence of them. And then also the shovel melee, which again is very similar to a Battlefield style. So maybe they kind of took a bit of influence from Battlefield, which I think is a great game. But yeah, the trailer kind of it didn't set anything on fire for me. It was just like, okay, yeah.
I mean, there were flamethrowers in the trailer.
Yeah, I mean, there was literal fire, but there was nothing burning deep inside me, Paddy. but yeah, it's just for me, it was just another COD game. It's gonna sell well. I probably may get it because I'm sad like that. But yeah, it'll still do well because it's Call of Duty.
Yeah, it's something that I'll probably pick up as well. I mean, I don't have any particular hatred for the series like so many people seem to. It looks interesting. It looks cool. I'm excited to. I'd actually like to see some gameplay. I've seen enough of these kind of trailers. Then they switched tack to PSVR. They had a whole segment in PlayStation VR. They announced 6 games: Skyrim VR, Star Child, The Impatient, Bravo Team, Monster of the Deep, which for some reason is a Final Fantasy fishing game, and a game called Moss. Nothing. I
think it's really interesting that Skyrim appeared as a VR title in there because obviously Bethesda have made a big song and dance about a Fallout and all of that stuff, and obviously we watched the Bethesda one, and for me that didn't have much in there, so you would have think they would have kept that for themselves because that is something that is actually quite big for Bethesda. Like I'm not sure whether or not they just had too much Skyrim in there, but they needed more in there.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like even though Fallout 4 reviewed really well and was received really well, and I think sold pretty well, I still think even though it came out years before and on a different platform, Skyrim is still feels like their biggest property, the one that most people get excited about.
Yeah.
So for them to not have that, but for it to show off here was a bit weird. But then at the same time, I guess Sony really needed something to push their VR system.
Yeah, that like entire VR section was a bit weird. I mean, I understand Skyrim, but Star Child is like a 2D side scroller type game, and I don't really see the appeal in bringing that to VR. So unless there are any other aspects that they didn't show in the trailer that will like be very good for VR. I know
there's a few. There already is a few games out there for VR that are like, your players like someone in a 3D space, but you view that 3D space from the side or from the front in VR. Like I know it's obviously one thing they're working on in terms of trying to make it so you don't have to worry about the motion sickness and trying to create like VR like in that sense. So I don't think it's something that I'm still not sure about whether I'd enjoy, because obviously when you think VR you think a first person point of view, but like it is a bit weird.
Yeah, and then having the Final Fantasy fishing game, which is now going to be called, that again was a bit weird. Why would you need VR for a fishing game? I know there's like some cool monsters down there, but didn't do anything for me. And Bravo Team just seems like an on the rails first person shooter. So I mean, nothing really grabbed my attention. Maybe Moss, because it was like a 3D platformer, which I think might be quite an interesting concept for VR. But yeah, other than that,
of all of those, I think Moss was probably the most exciting. I mean, well, exciting in inverted commas, like the most interesting looking, because I love that word. But nothing that really stands out as, I need to pick up a PSVR right now.
Nothing that sold me. If I want to play Skyrim, I'll play it on the console. I'm not going to get a VR, then buy Skyrim again to kind of fiddle around and be frustrated with the controls.
Yeah, and I've also been thinking about, sort of Skyrim and Fallout in VR. I mean, these are games with famously stilted and jilted animations. Is that going to look really weird in first person, like running around and everything kind of being a little bit, I don't know. I just feel like it would make me really motion sick. So then they came out with the VR section and they showed us something, that I'm really excited about, God of War, which they put a release window on of early 2018. That's a kind of, I'll believe it when I see it type thing, because that game, they'll push it if they need to. But we saw what was definitely some gameplay, some combat, and also a bit more story stuff, and that game looks really cool.
It does look awesome. That looks so much fun. I can't wait.
Yeah, and like the whole sort of style of it, they're giving Kratos like a bit more like a wisdomy vibe, because now he's with his son. So like instead of just the bloodthirsty kind of tearing through everything, like there's still that heavy like blood aspect, but he's a bit more not quite caring, because I mean many times you saw him split something in half, but he's taken more of like a mentor role, and hopefully you'd be able to like maybe play as the kid every now and then in the story and take on a bit of a stealthy vibe, because I think that'd be quite a cool little little addition.
Yeah, it might be nice to mix up the gameplay. Very like really beautiful looking game, and I like what they're doing with Kratos. I think it's a nice kind of reflection of where the industry is going. You know, when God of War first came out, you know, this kind of action set piece, beautiful but relatively stupid, you know, in terms of actual story and stuff was fine. But I think the industry is really changing and accepting more different kinds of stories. So it'd be nice to see this kind of more mature, grown up version of God of War, but with hopefully all the same mad action and ridiculously huge boss battles. We already saw that massive snake, E3 2017, year of the massive snake.
There seems to be a lot of snakes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't wait for that. It's going to be really cool. And then they followed up with another game that I can't wait for, which, no release date, but Detroit Become Human.
Ooh,
They showed more of that.
That looks really cool. I remember the trailer from last year where they had the a girl on the rooftop, and you know it was all sort of robots, and I know it was something to do with it wasn't he a detective or some sort of a negotiator.
Yeah, there was a robot that was a
something.
detective that was trying to convince this guy to. I think he was holding a gun to someone's head.
Yeah, and obviously this year they've moved around and sort of tried to show it from a different sort of angle, which is around like a revolution for the androids and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it is starting to look really really cool. So I'm interested.
Yeah, especially like the choose your own story aspect of it, instead of just like a few kind of very similar choices that the main story will kind of keep the same, but like a few little aspects will change. It seems to like thrown that out the window and gone, well, you can completely control the story and go in so many different directions. So that'll be really interesting to see kind of how expansive that actually is.
Always find with this sort of game, that's what they always seem to promise, and you always sit there and hope and go, yeah, this will be the one game where you truly have, you know, real big choices in the sense of actually choosing this one or that will have a huge impact on the plot and change the story, like sort of like altogether, like as opposed to, you know, always following the same story, but you know that story it can change and the dialogue options are slightly different. It would be really nice just to see something that can really try and push that genre, because it will at some point it will get stale.
Yeah, because what I'd like to see in that sort of area is if they can actually manage to, like, you don't need to follow like the main story. Like, if you do one choice, it can like maybe completely change your end goal, and the main story missions like in one path are completely different to the main story missions in another path. Like that's something I'd really like to see.
Yeah,
it's really, I guess, fascinating to see how broad this is, how much depth there is, how basically wide the story can branch. I mean, I know that Heavy Rain had like 30 different possible endings, but they were all, you know, relatively similar in terms of like finding out or not finding out who the killer was, and you know, some characters can live or they can die depending on your choices. So it'd be really interesting to see what the next step of that is. I think so far this looks like, you know, Quantic Dream what are they called? Quantum, whatever. The studio getting really back to form, because the Beyond Two Souls wasn't that great. I don't think it wasn't received as well as Heavy Rain. So it'd be interesting to see what they can do with that and where they can take it. It's always with those. It'll be nice to actually see gameplay, because you never know quite how much control you have. In like moment to moment, but a very strong showing so far. And then they moved to Destiny 2, which is coming September 6th, and another kind of mood set trailer with a little bit of Guardians running around, but not like no gameplay. I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's much buzz about the fact that, you know, Destiny 2. I remember how much the first Destiny was just endless, waiting for that to come out. They made such a huge deal of it. This one's just
September as well.
Yeah,
that's soon.
It's like just slipping out in a few months.
Yeah, well, like, I know, like, maybe a lot more of the bigger Destiny fans are going to start shouting at me or shouting at their screen, the two of them that are watching this. But, like, you're wrong, but I didn't see too much different from the first game. Obviously, there's, like, a new story. There's a new kind of enemy. It seemed to be, like, a new race. But, yeah, like, other than the Titan, Hunter, and Warlock classes, they seem to be still there. They maybe, like, slightly new abilities, but it seems to be fairly generic from Destiny 1. And there was nothing there that stood out and went, okay, this is completely different. Like the story, yeah, is like totally different, and I'd expect that, but there's nothing there that I'll be like, oh, that's completely new. They've brought something in for this game. They've really stepped it up. But I'll still probably buy it because I love Destiny.
Well, as someone who didn't hop on board on the first one, I have to admit, from conversations and things that I've heard about the second one, I am more like interested. Like especially since they worked out the kinks they had from the early build sort of the first game. So I'm interested to see where it goes and stuff. But like I'm just waiting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I got the first one out of, I was genuinely excited for it, and then when I actually played it, I was like, oh, okay, this isn't maybe not necessarily for me. Like I like being dragged along by like a really strong narrative, and not necessarily by, finding a cool new gun. That doesn't really do it for me. Like the whole loot grind thing isn't really my thing. But if this one kind of promises a stronger narrative and a bit more of the world, because that's sort of really what I was hoping for, then maybe. But so far they've not really shown anything to change that.
No.
And then they ended the show with probably my highlight of E3 2017, which was a new trailer and gameplay for Spider-Man, which is going to be called Spider-Man, and comes out sometime next year.
Oh, that was so bloody cool! I swear to God, It's just. I mean, I was a huge fan of Spider-Man 2 when that was out on the PlayStation 2.
Yeah,
and
that's a real classic.
With each Spider-Man game that's come out year after year after year, I've not picked them up and everything, but I've been sitting there, fingers across, going, "Oh, I really hope this one's just like a Spider-Man 2." And it's not like I think that this one will be like a copy of Spider-Man 2, like obviously like it's its own thing, but it's just really nice to see someone taking it seriously, just like Rocksteady did with the Batman franchise.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, oh yes, thank God.
Yeah, and there were definitely Rocksteady and Batman the Arkham games influences in this, and the combat and the way you kind of everything slowed down, lots of combos. I love the different ways that he used the webbing to kind of tie people to things and to like stun people.
Web slinging as well, small
that
web sling around the city. Yeah, I'm properly chuffed about that.
Yeah, that looks really good. Alistair, anything to add?
Yeah, like I didn't really have too much to say about the Spider-Man game. Like it did seem pretty good, but yeah, I don't think it's not gonna convince me to get it.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I mean, quite a lot of quick time stuff going on there, but I guess how do you deal with massive set pieces and cranes falling down without
having that?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's really.
Yeah, I suppose I am a fan of it, just as long as it's not planted halfway through a cutscene where you're just standing there having a chinwag and then press B or press a circle.
Yeah.
God.
Those are always really annoying.
Yeah.
I like the kind of the style. It looks quite cartoony, which is nice. I think it's really vibrant and fun. And also at the very end of the trailer, kind of they showed a little hint of what might be Miles Morales taking a picture of the crash scene. So possibly not a Peter Parker Spider-Man game, which, considering we've got the films coming out, I mean, cool,
that's
whatever.
Awesome.
Do something different, try something different. So that was definitely my highlight of the show. So that was everything. That's what they ended on. Rob, do you want to give us your final thoughts and a score for Sony's E3 press conference?
Yeah. Well, my score is I'm going to give Sony a 8 out of 10. I thought it was a very, very strong conference. I haven't rated it as high as Microsoft's because I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where when I finished watching the Microsoft one, I felt bloody hell, Microsoft have really done well this year. Yeah, awesome. But when I come out of the Sony one, I was like, oh yeah, I felt slightly underwhelmed.
Yeah,
I'm not sure why, but yeah, it's just I don't know. I was just a little bit deflated. So I'm a bit okay then. So yeah, okay. I think it was still really good. So yeah, it was really good. It just because it didn't hit the peaks of the previous 2 years, it just falls flat.
Okay, Alistair?
Well, I think Sony, there was a lot there that kind of that piqued my interest. A lot there that I tempted me to get a PS, but hasn't done enough. But I'm going to give it a solid 7 because there was a lot to be excited about if you're a Sony fan.
Cool. Okay, and for me, like I feel like I've overscored most of these conferences. Well, maybe not EA and Bethesda. I just think, like, the more I reflect on them, I think just E3 this year doesn't feel, I don't know, it doesn't have the same power, I think, as the last couple of years. I think we've just been spoilt. We've just really been spoilt by like what's happened previously. A lot of trailers for games that we already know are coming, and no gameplay and no chat about them, so we don't really know what's different or what to get excited for. Of all the conferences, this was definitely my favorite, and that reflects in my score. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 just because there's a lot of games in there that I'm really excited for. I think Spider-Man alone would make me want to score this higher, but then also God of War, and then more Horizon and more Uncharted, and Days Gone looking better. So for me, definitely a great conference. And yeah, to the end of, well, not quite, there's also Nintendo, but not the most exciting of E3s, but
No,
no.
not so far. Like, unless Nintendo do something spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they don't delay the new Mario game, then this will have been that they'll have a good show. Cool. So that was our Sony review show for the Sony conference at E3. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can like the video, subscribe, share it with your friends. We are Twisted Bard. You can go over to twistedbard.com, and there's a whole bunch of gaming stuff there. And then just search Twisted Bard on YouTube for our videos. I hope you had a wonderful day. I didn't do the thing that we were going to do. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.